when I went to the bar, again, I was quite young, and I was just taking anything and I bought chambers almost immediately. So I had a huge financial commitment around my neck. So I did just about anything, and including, and unfortunately, increasingly, so I shouldn't say unfortunately because there are some very good practitioners in family law, but it's a matter of choice. The problem was, for many of us, we were denied the choice of what we wanted to do, and that was really the issue. So I did, as my practice began to build, it did begin to build in family law, and I took a decision after about 4 or 5 years that I just wasn't going to do anymore, and I just stopped accepting family law work because it was not the work that I wanted to do. I really did want to do, equity or commercial or administrative law.
Financially, did that jeopardise your arrangements at that time, or were you able to get by okay?
Interestingly, no, it was the best thing I did.
So let's just retrace for a moment. You graduated from Sydney University with honours in law in 1974. You didn't do articles anywhere?
I did articles at a very small firm called Winter and Sharp for a year, and then the next year I went straight to the bar.
So your admission was on 14th of March 1975. Can you tell us a little bit about that day and how it felt to be admitted to the New South Wales Bar at that time?
Well, it's very... Look, I think in those days I just took everything in my stride. I don't think I was overawed by anything very much. When I decided to go to the bar, I just rang some people up and went to talk to them. They didn't know me from Adam or Eve. I got as much information as I could. By some chance, and I don't know quite how this happened now, Keith Mason, who had been a Solicitor General and was President of the Court of Appeal for most of my time now in the court, was going overseas for a period of 6 weeks, and he permitted me to use his chambers for that 6 weeks for free, which was, just excellent. I had somewhere to sit. Again, some people threw me some briefs, again down in the family law area, and I just had and then a room. I was making applications for rooms and being steadfastly rejected by everybody. And then a room became available on the 9th floor of Selborne Chambers, and I had one of those moments of luck in my career, and I got that room. But it was a lucky chance that I got it.
And no objections raised when you did get that room? By the floor?
Oh, I'm sure there were huge objections. But it was a very lucky chance. And because I was in court one day before a very crusty old family law judge, and in those days they were still doing the very old petitions. It was 1975, it was before the Family Law Act was introduced, and so the Family Law Division was still part of the Supreme Court. And I was in court running through one of these petitions, and I came out, and a gentleman as equally crusty as the judge tapped me on the shoulder and he says, "Oh, excuse me," he says, "I've just worked out who you are." In that very crusty old voice. "You must come up and meet the other members of the floor." And at this stage I still actually didn't even know who he was. It was Peter Vine Hall, a barrister on the 9th floor, and he said to me, "Haven't seen one of you young ones not fluff your lines." And he went back to the floor and he spoke on my behalf. And I'm told that that's why I got the room, because he was a reputed misogynist, perhaps. It might be too hard a word for Peter, actually, but he was not an advocate for women at the bar. And so when he went back to a floor meeting and said, "I've seen this girl," as I think, as I was told, I was referred to.
You were probably going to be a girl for many years.
We better have her. And that's how I got the floor. If it had not been for that 5 minutes or 10 minutes of court appearance in a running list when he was in the court at the same time as I was making the petition for the divorce, I probably would have been still looking for a room 2 years later.
Well, that makes a very refreshing change to some of the other anecdotes I've had, and in no way detracting from those anecdotes at all, whereby people experienced enormous difficulties from some of these old curmudgeons who were not prepared in any way to make rooms available, or for that matter to, as they say, give them a proper go in terms of what they did in court or anything. So that is really quite fascinating.
I mean, mind you, at that stage I think I'd applied, that might have been my third or fourth room that I'd applied for, and I had been rejected from the others quite bluntly because I was a female. I was rejected from the 1 or 2 weeks previously. I had my application on the 9th floor Wentworth had been refused simply because I was a female. There was I think it was the 12th floor of Selborne where Priscilla Fleming was. Their attitude was, well, they had their female, you don't need any more. And certainly on my floor, I was the only female for an extraordinarily long time. And then Paddy Bergen became a member of that floor, and she's now, of course, the Chief Judge in Equity. But it was many years after that. So it has a significant effect on your life at the bar because you're not surrounded by friends. There's a terrific expression, you have to let me bring it back to mind. And it is the not so much the lack of friendship at the bar, but it's the ready access to other females in the room next door or down the corridor, that the males just build up those friendships at the bar in a very easy way.
So with that in mind, and yes, there were few females, but there were nevertheless a few dotted around here and there. Did you get to know any in those early years and become friendly and develop the camaraderie that you're speaking of?
Oh, yes, and they were terrific. Priscilla Fleming, Pat Moore, Janet Coombs, and Jane Matthews, who is an extraordinarily close friend of mine and is the godmother of my oldest daughter. We in particular became very, very close. But it took a little while to build up those friendships, of course, because everybody is busy and has their own interests and things like that. But yeah, that group in particular was really quite amazing. Now, I don't have a huge memory of Mary Gaudron at that stage, but she may have already had one of her appointments by then, or very shortly after, I think.
Yes, 1975. Well, she had been on the Bar Council prior to 1975, but I don't think the actual big appointments started happening until perhaps around about the mid-1970s, and certainly she didn't become Solicitor General till about the early 80s.
Right. That might be right, yeah.
So you didn't see Mary much?
I don't have a recollection of seeing Mary a great deal. That's quite right. Mm. But when I think about it, that may well be because she wasn't practising family law, where the early years of my practice were.